Best bets for NFL Week 6. I'm Nick Whalen. He's John McKechnie. We are back for another week. John, you're coming off a nice week, a 3-0 mark for you in Week 5. We both hit our locks of the week, had some good luck in the props market. Try to bring it back again for you this week. And as always, we'll each have our 3 favorite plays for the week. Could be sides, could be totals, might even sneak a team total in there. We'll move on with some survivor analysis, major carnage in just about any survivor contest you were playing in Week 5. We'll go through some of the numbers coming out of the Circa contest. We'll hit our favorite props for Week 6 and then finish out with the parlays, the teaser of the week, and talk a little bit about the parity around the NFL and whether that's impacting how we're betting the futures markets. John, Week 5, a massive one for the underdogs. 9-5 against the spread, 9-5 straight up. We had the Rams, the Eagles, the Cardinals, Seattle, the Bills, the Chiefs all went down as at least 3-point favorites. Did you sustain any survivor carnage yourself?
I did not, because the way that I had it set up, I was planning on doing a little 2-step action where I was going to go Lions last week against the Bengals, a little stress-free action, a little bit stressful on the spread, but otherwise good. And then my plan was to take Indianapolis this week. And, I mentioned on the pod last week that the Cardinals, theoretically, absolutely, they should have won that game at the very least. Spread's a whole different discussion, but I liked Tennessee against the spread, and therefore when I like an underdog against the spread, I'm probably not picking, I feel like there's weird juju about, Survivor as a result. So that was tough. I know that in the pentathlon league that our guy Derek Van Riper runs, absolute carnage. There were 2 teams that were on the Rams and 4 that were on the Cardinals. So that knocked about half the teams out. Half the teams got a strike from just last week alone. And everyone had been kind of floating along pretty nicely, kind of like I said with the Mario Party game analogy, where that fire jump rope starting to spin a little bit faster now.
Yeah, we'll dig in on the ugly numbers from Survivor in Week 5 later in the show. But John, as always, you have 3 plays, I have 3 plays. I'll let you lead us off. Where do you want to go first?
Oh boy, I'm going to Charm City. It hurts me to do this, folks, but I love the Rams -7.5 at Baltimore. The Rams have a little bit of a added rest advantage here, given that they just played last Thursday night. I honestly think it helps their case covering that they're coming off of a loss. The Ravens still probably going to be without Lamar Jackson. That's what the line tells us. That's what the practice reports tell us as well. Baltimore getting a little bit of reinforcements back. It looks like Kyle Hamilton and Ronnie Stanley should be back. They added Alohi Gilman this week to kind of help out that secondary that has been, regularly giving up yards to opposing passers and everything. But ultimately, this is Cooper Rush versus Matthew Stafford. Ultimately, this is a Ravens offense that, as we saw last week, they're going to try the best they can to get Derrick Henry going, but when there's literally no run threat from Cooper Rush, it's a direct tell to the defense what the Baltimore offense is going to be doing. They're going to be very predictable. The Rams know that. And so I'm envisioning a very low point total on the Baltimore side. And Baltimore's defense, again, even at full strength, has been so porous to where it's like, how are they stopping this Rams team over the course of 60 minutes? I think that this one gets pretty ugly. I could see this one being like a 27-10 type of game in favor of the Rams. I don't think the Ravens really threaten this cover.
Okay, we haven't had a whole lot of overlap so far this season, John, but this one is on my list as well. So I'll quickly pile on here. I like the Rams. One thing that you didn't mention is that, the Rams are on extended rest. Yes, they are on the road here, but they of course played on Thursday night. And I think the results of that Thursday night game impact my thoughts here. Like if the Rams had just cruised to an easy win over this banged up 49ers team, I would be worried about this as a potential trap spot. But I don't think we see Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Sean McVay tripped up in 2 straight weeks. I think they already had their slip up game against San Francisco. I don't think that's happening again this week against Baltimore. Like you said, defense is still banged up. Does sound like Kyle Hamilton will play. Ronnie Stanley's been limited this week. Even if he's out there, he's probably not 100%. And I just have no faith in the Ravens running game. I mean, Derrick Henry, week 1, 18 carries, almost 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 runs for 10 plus yards. Last 4 games combined, 46 carries, 148 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 runs of 10 plus yards. He has 30 total fantasy points over the last 4 games. And speaking of that defense, Sean, like you said, it was bad even before these injuries set in. On the year now, 30th in EPA per play, 31st in success rate, 29th against the pass, 31st against the rush. They've given up 30 passing plays already of 15 plus yards. That's the third most in the NFL. So I'm on the Rams here. I think they avenged that letdown against San Francisco. And by the way, as above a 4-point favorite on the road, Sean McVay with the Rams 16-0 straight up, winning those games by over 2 touchdowns per game. Would also look here at, there was an interesting trend as far as the first versus second half for the Rams. I would look at the Rams minus 4.5 in the first half. Matthew Stafford has just been terrible covering the second half spread throughout his career. With the Rams, 8-24-1 to the second half spread. If you look at since 2022, 3-17-1 to the second half spread after leading at the half. So maybe something to consider as a live betting opportunity. But you and I both on the LA Rams minus 7.5. Your second game.
So I'm feeling a little bit like I'm putting myself in danger here with another road favorite. This one, less of a strong team than the Rams. And I know that their most impressive thing that they've done is a tie. But I like the Cowboys this week. I think that there's everyone hated the Schottenheimer hire, right? And everyone knows that the defense is bad. They seem to be vibing. They seem to be like the spirits are pretty high there in Dallas. The offense obviously clicked last week against a bad Jets defense, but guess what? They get to do something similar this week against the Panthers defense. Like, I'm not worried about this Panthers defense at home whatsoever. I take next to nothing from the Panthers comeback win over the Dolphins. If anything, I take it all away to the Dolphins side of that. And it's just like, that is super embarrassing for them to blow a 17-point lead the way that they did. The Cowboys, I feel like they're kind of rolling right now. I feel like they're feeling good. And I know that can be a dangerous spot and everything, but I think they're going to get a little bit healthier on the offensive line. I know that Rico Dowdle was saying to buckle up your chin straps, Cowboys. I don't know. That's like a strange revenge game narrative. I'm starting Rico Dowdle where I have him, of course, but because the Cowboys defense is bad. I think you could look to the over in this game, but I think more than anything, I'm happy to lay the wood here. You can get it at Cowboys -3 over at BetMGM. Other shops, you get 3 and a hook. That might be a little bit influential on how you're betting this game, but any threes out there that I'm seeing, I'm backing the boys.
I think you laid that out really well. That was more about Miami blowing a 17-0 lead than it was Carolina, rallying back. And, credit to the Panthers, I suppose. It's also not often that you could come back from a 3-score deficit on the ground. You don't run your way back into these games. I mean, that is about the Miami Dolphins defense just being by far the worst run defense in the NFL. And the Cowboys defense is bad, but it's the pass defense, right? And so if you want to dare Bryce Young to beat you in this game, so be it. I actually don't love this spot for Rico Dowdle. It's an okay matchup, but it's not the Miami Dolphins. It's not the Chicago Bears. So I think if Carolina is going to hang around, if they're going to find a way to win outright, it's going to have to be on the arm of Bryce Young. That is a very dubious possibility to me. And the one thing I will say that worries me about the Dallas side, a lot of injuries, 3 offensive linemen banged up. The entire defensive backfield is questionable. So that's one thing I would monitor, but I'm with you, man. I said this on XM this week. Like, I did not think we would be 5 weeks into the season, and I would look at the Dallas Cowboys and say, this is one of the best coached teams in the NFL.
Without CeeDee Lamb too, you're feeling good about them. Like they really do have some key injuries. That secondary part does concern me a little bit, but again, you got to just remind yourself it's Bryce Young. He's not going to hurt you. It's okay. So I am on the Cowboys here. Yep. I'm happy to take the road fave. George Pickens, Jorge Pickens. He's the man. Give me the boys.
All right, there we have it. Dallas Cowboys for John's second pick. I like to work a total into the show every week, John. So I am taking us down to the Bayou, down in New Orleans, where we are going under 46 in Patriots Saints. And this number's been bouncing around. It was a little bit lower to start the week. There's some 45.5s out there now. We're grabbing it at 46. For one, I'm just really not sure what to do with the Patriots right now. 2 weeks ago, you put up 40 plus on the Carolina Panthers, huge win, even bigger win in primetime on Sunday night at the Buffalo Bills. I haven't really been all that impressed with Buffalo. Don't want to take anything away from New England. Walking into that stadium and beating Josh Allen certainly means something, but I'm not ready to say that the Patriots have just arrived here and they're the type of team that will take care of business in a road spot against New Orleans, and a Saints team that especially defensively, has played really well. I think considering their personnel this season, they're 14th in EPA per play on defense, kind of middle of the pack in terms of success rate, which is very good when you're the New Orleans Saints. They're middle of the pack in EPA per pass. They're 12th in EPA per rush. So I actually think there's a pretty decent chance that the Saints can hang around and cover this game. But I don't think it's going to be high scoring, partially because the Saints do not generate big plays. They have 5 explosive plays of 20-plus yards on the entire season. That is far and away the fewest of any team in the NFL. They do not have a single running play that has gone for 20-plus yards. So all of those have been passes. They also do a good job of limiting plays, limiting big plays, I should say, defensively, top 10 in the NFL in that category. The Patriots, if you look at the numbers, they've given up the most big passing plays in the NFL at 35, but 10 of those came in week 1 against Geno Smith. That defense has buckled down since they got Christian Gonzalez back. And again, The Saints are not the team that's going to beat you with those explosives. I think we go under here. I think this is like a 23-20 type of game.
Yeah, I think ultimately the Patriots don't strike me as a big play offense in their own right. Like they're certainly on the ascent. They're on the climb. I think everyone's really excited about Drake May and everything, but they're more of like that methodical, long drive type of scoring drive offense. They're not quick strike at all. They don't have the personnel for that in my opinion. Like as good as Stephon Diggs was last week, it was more just like the volume that was getting him the yardage more than like, big explosive plays. So I still think I like the Patriots in this spot, but ultimately low scoring, I think, is the way to go here. I like the under 46 here too.
Yeah, Patriots run defense showed up in that too. I mean, Buffalo's been running on everybody. James Cook has been putting up these huge games, completely shut down by that Patriots defense. And by the way, Alvin Kamara, very much questionable to play in this game, picked up an ankle injury at practice this week. So that helps us for Kendre Miller purposes in fantasy. I don't think that helps the Saints offense as far as real life football goes. All right, John, let's finish out with our third and final picks apiece. I know you are looking at the Lions-Chiefs game on Sunday night.
Yeah, let's go big game hunting a little bit here. This one very exciting. I think, this is potentially a Super Bowl preview. We got the Lions 2.5-point dogs on the road going to Arrowhead. Arrowhead, obviously a tough place to play. The Chiefs are going to be in a salty mood, of course, coming off of their primetime loss a week ago against the Jags. Great game. I like the Lions here. I just think that overall they're playing better. I think, we talked about parity at the start of the show. We'll unpack it a little bit further, but I think right now I'd probably have the Lions at the top of my power rankings. I know that there's terrifying splits if you care to look at them as far as like Goff on the road, covering spreads or in night games in colder environments. Not that it's going to be like frigid at Arrowhead or anything, but there's stuff that can scare you off the Lions here. But I think it's a friendly enough number for them to cover. I'd love to see it at 3, of course, but 2.5, I think you can still do that. And I think that the Lions have a very good chance to win that game. I think the Chiefs really struggle to run the ball, so it's going to be a lot of Mahomes playing hero ball. Of course, that Lions secondary, a little bit shaky right now, so the pass rush is going to have to get home here for the Lions, but I do give the Lions a distinct edge as far as their pass rush versus an offensive line in Kansas City that I think is mediocre at best. So I think the Lions are going to be able to play their game, dictate things a little bit better when they have the ball as well. Ultimately, that leads me to believe that the Chiefs are not covering this one. Give me the Lions.
All right. Well, that means the Chiefs are going to be 2-4 through 6 weeks, John. An interesting spot for the Kansas City Chiefs as they await the return of Rashee Rice. I'm also going to primetime. I'm also going to primetime for my final game here. We have 2 Monday night games again this week for some reason. I don't love these staggered starts. Like I have no problem with 2 Monday night games, but just make them back to back. I don't mind staying up late. I feel for the people on the East Coast, but give us 2. Don't give us these games that are starting an hour apart. Nonetheless, I'm going to the later game. Commanders home for the Bears. The number's 4.5. We are taking the Washington Commanders. Now, I know the Chicago Bears are coming off of a bye. I don't think that matters to me. I don't think this is a very good football team, especially going out on the road and having to face Jaden Daniels. That win against Vegas before the bye didn't really do anything for me. The Raiders handed them that game. And, had it not been for multiple turnovers from Geno Smith, I think the Raiders probably cruised to a relatively easy win. They still had a chance to win it in regulation despite all those errors. They get a field goal blocked. That's not a resume builder for me whatsoever. You look at this Commanders defense. The one thing that does concern me here is that they give up a ton of big plays, specifically through the air. And, Chicago does have that explosive potential. We've seen it a few times this season. So that is the concern. But I also really liked what I saw from the Commanders defense, especially in the second half against the Chargers last week. I mean, rallying from a 10-0 deficit and just, shutting out the Chargers basically for the final 3 quarters of that game. That was maybe the most impressive win to me of week 5. You also look at the Commanders' rushing attack. Once again, really, really good, especially with Jaden Daniels in there. The Bears' run defense, it's not quite Dolphins level, but they're worst in the NFL in terms of yards per carry given up. They haven't really faced a true running quarterback either. That's kind of the big thing here. Is unless we're counting J.J. McCarthy, who had 2 rushes for 25 yards in week 1, including a touchdown, they're a terrible run defense, and they haven't had to face a true running quarterback, especially not somebody the caliber of Jaden Daniels. So I think we see Washington get after that Bears defense. Jaden Daniels, if you're looking for a trend here, 8-4 against the spread as a favorite. He's 3-1 against the spread in games against a team on longer rest. So I know the Bears are coming in here. They're trying to avenge the Hail Mary from last year. I don't think it happens. I think the Commanders win this game by a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm definitely not sold on the Bears. Really, like, the highlight of their season was lighting it up against a Cowboys defense that was just, completely flat-footed and shorthanded and whatever other descriptors you want to put in there. Barely escaped by the skin of their teeth against the Raiders, and the Raiders are a bottom 3, bottom 5, probably bottom 3
Raiders
team.
Are the Raiders.
Yeah, they're really bad. So you don't really take much away from that. I was sort of in wait and see mode with Washington going into last week, and how's Jaden going to look coming off the injury? I still don't know exactly what to think of the Commanders and whether they're going to challenge for the NFC East or anything like that. But statement win for them, I thought. Even if the Chargers were a bit shorthanded, they took it to them, especially in the second half. Very impressive. They're going to be at home. It's going to be electric there. Caleb Williams, his homecoming will be spoiled.
All right, it's time to take a look at what happened in Survivor in week 5. We'll take a look at where we may be placing our entries in week 6. It's a good time to remind you that we're brought to you every week by the good folks over at Circa. It's football season. The best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. 3 levels, 6 pools, a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, soon to be Tuesday, you can catch some action out at Circa. Stadium Swim is the place, America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, day beds, stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with temperature-controlled pools. It's a great place to catch all the games all season long. Stadium Swim at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. All right, so we got to go through the numbers here, John, just to put into perspective how bad this was in terms of carnage for Survivor. So looking at the Circa contest, 7,758 entries went out in week 5. So that means we are down to 4,646 active entries, implied value of a little over $4,000 per entry. So congratulations, you've already 4x'd. If you're looking to offload your entry, wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. It's too early in the season to punt, but hey, do whatever you want. We had over 3,500 entries go out on the Rams. We had just about 3,150 go out on Arizona. 756 went out on Buffalo, 155 on Seattle, 65 on the LA Chargers, and then at least 15 entries were eliminated on Philly, KC, the New York Giants, and the Miami Dolphins, respectively. We need to find the person, John. There was one person in Circa Survivor in week 5 who put their entry on the Tennessee Titans. I need to shake that person's hand.
I want to shake your hand. That's an unbelievable move. And you mentioned that a small but wild fraction of the pool had Miami. Like, I know that the Cardinals, they take, and the Rams, they take the cake as far as like the biggest like nukes to this entry. But my God, you're up 17-0 against the Panthers. You're just like counting what you're looking ahead to next week already, and it's barely 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday, East Coast time, and then you look at maybe you go out to PF Chang's, and then all of a sudden your entry's up in smoke. You got to pay for those egg rolls a different way. Terrible.
Yeah, you're watching Bryce Young convert 4th downs to Jimmy Horn late in the game. I mean, shame on you for putting an entry on the Miami Dolphins in the first place. But yeah, an underrated bad beat in Survivor in week 5. Unsurprisingly, the Grandissimo contest at Circa followed a very similar script. We are now down to 16 active entries. 39 out of 55 went down in week 5, 20 of those on Arizona, 15 on the Rams, 4 on Buffalo. The 16 who made it through, 10 of them were on Detroit, 5 on Indy, 1 on the Minnesota Vikings. Kind of an underrated sweat as well. Vikings had to win that one late in the fourth quarter. If you're playing in the Grandissimo, goes without saying, John, that you and I did not plunk down $100,000 to enter that contest. Your implied value now, $431,000. So nice work if you are one of the 16 remaining in Grandissimo. Let's look at week 6, John. Green Bay, widely projected to be the top pick team this week. The projections have that at close to 50%. Rams, Eagles, also projected to be somewhat popular, kind of pales in comparison to Green Bay. We could see some Vegas. I would not do that personally. Raiders home for the Titans. If you're one of those, like, where else do I burn this team type of players, this could be a Vegas spot. Maybe Pittsburgh as a 6.5 point favorite at home. Indy. I think if you have Indy available, that becomes pretty appealing, especially if Kyler doesn't play.
So there are a handful of good options this week, like you're saying. If you're just following the money lines, the Broncos are up there, but again, Europe games, I feel like they just start crossed off my list. That's a good point, but I feel like they have a case, given the spread and given how stinky the Jets are. But I also have kind of a corollary where, like, the later on in the season we go, the less I'm inclined to pick against the winless team, because we're into October. Like, we're in desperate animal mode when it comes to the Jets. So staying off of that one. That's a bit of a live wire to me. For me, Rams or Colts are how I'm approaching this week. If I don't have those options, somehow I would have the Packers probably, but I mean, they seem the free space, but ultimately Rams and Colts, I think I lean Colts, honestly. I think that our guy Mario Puig was making a good point on the fantasy football podcast. Like, I was kind of saying, like, is it really that big of a downgrade if Kyler's out? And he was saying, yes, because the Cardinals have no real ethos to their entire offense. Like, they're just going to be like, all right, Jacoby, go figure it out the way that they do it with Kyler, just throwing him to the wolves. Yeah. And that seems like it would bode poorly on the road against a good Indianapolis team. So I think that number could change a decent bit pending Kyler's status. And ultimately, Colts for me is the pick, Rams secondary pick.
Yeah, it's tough because the Colts, the Rams, and the Packers all have maybe not quite as appealing matchups, but similarly good spots coming up. The Packers play the Panthers at home in a few weeks. The Colts get the Titans at home at the end of October. The Rams are home for the Saints on November 2nd. So we're getting to that point where you can't necessarily just save everybody. You got to burn someone each week, but a little bit tricky this week. And I think we'll see some people kind of fade Green Bay with how many entries are projected to be on the Packers. But man, if Green Bay doesn't win that game, 14.5 point favorites going up against Joe Flacco for the second time in 3 weeks, we got much bigger issues. Let's turn our attention to the prop market, John. A strong week for us in terms of props in week 5, and some nice hits in the prop market, although none of my anytime touchdowns came through. Need to be forthcoming about that. Quinshon Judkins, Breece Hall, Kendre Miller took a shot there. That did not pay out. And then Tedorow and McMillan. So hopefully we'll have some better luck with the anytime TDs this week. I'll let you lead us off. I know you and I were both digging in on the RotoWire picks tool. You can check that out. RotoWire.com/picks gives you really good guidance. Just a nice starting point, if nothing else, each week, comparing all the lines from all the different books. You can rope in, Prize Picks, Underdog, Sleeper, sites like that to find where the best value is. So when you were going through on the picks tool, where did you find yourself leaning?
Yes, the picks tool is essential for me for this particular podcast and in my own gambling interests, and a great way to just confirm my priors. Like, if I think that this guy's going to have a crap week, and then there's a bunch of red lines next to him, like, all right, bang, we're booking this one. And then I want to further preface things by saying I'm glad that the Eagles are not in our purview for this preview, because nuts to Nick Sirianni. Nuts to Jalen Hurts for throwing it a zillion times last week, blowing up my 25.5 pass attempts prop on Hurts. I don't know why the Eagles are button mashing their offense, but it's maddening. I don't have to worry about it this week. This week, what we're worrying about, I'll throw some anytime touchdowns at you. I like Jake Ferguson anytime, plus 160. I like Quinshon Judkins, not the best number here, but roughly even money, plus 105. You can get that at. Let's see. I like a Daniel Jones rushing touchdown, anytime touchdown, plus 215. And I like Ashton Genty, 2 or more touchdowns against the Titans. That'll get you plus 430. And then we're going to the hater well. I prefaced that a moment ago. I'm looking at some unders. This one has been great for me thus far, which makes me concerned for this week. But give me under 72.5 yards from scrimmage for Chase Brown. Hasn't hit this all year. Came close recently, but going up against the Green Bay defense, I'm printing off of Chase Brown unders, and I'm going to continue to do so. Sticking in that game, I got under 254.5 passing and rushing yards for Jordan Love. I just don't think they're going to ask him to do all that much. I don't think they need him to do that much. I think that they run the ball, get out of there with a win is the Packers' MO this week. So not the big Dallas Cowboys level of game from Jordan Love this week. And then Isaiah Pacheco, under 47.5. I think that this Lions run defense is incredibly stout. And I think Pacheco's just really regressed. And I think that, there's going to be cases to be made for Brashard Smith getting in there, especially on passing downs. And Kareem Hunt gets in there for whatever reason. He's really good at scoring touchdowns still, which blows my mind. But between the 20s, not really a factor. But ultimately, under 47.5 rushing yards for Pacheco.
Yeah, that's a really high number. I'm shocked that would be at 47.5. Yeah, that's an easy under. I like that one quite a bit. All right, I got a bunch for you here, and I like your call on Chase Brown. I've actually just started direct depositing part of my paycheck every week, just right into playing Chase Brown unders. Just send it right to the book.
So good.
And he just hasn't even been close in 4 of these 5 games so far. I don't think that changes. We're going back to the well on Teteroa McMillan, over 64.5 receiving yards. This is like when you're playing blackjack and you start doing side bets and you lose like the first 7, but you're terrified to not put the $5 chip on the side bet because the one hand that you're going to win it. So I'm just going to keep playing the overs for Tet McMillan. It did go over this last week, did go over in weeks 1 and 2. We played the touchdown, of course, a week ago. That did not come through, but he now gets the best pass defense matchup in the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are dead last in production allowed to wide receivers this season. If you look at this through a fantasy lens, they're giving up 45 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. They've given up the most yards, the highest yards per target by a mile, the highest catch rate. They've allowed an NFL high 10 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. And I think the underlying numbers imply that the overall statistics for Teteroa McMillan should be better than they are. 25% team target share. That's 14th in the NFL. It's higher than Nico Collins. It's higher than Brian Thomas. It's higher than Emeka Egbuka. He's 7th in total targets with 43. He's got at least 8 targets in all 5 games thus far, averaging almost 15 yards per reception. So give me McMillan over 64.5. We like Jackson Smith and Jigba over 78.5 receiving yards. He's hit this number in every game so far this season. Jag secondary didn't really show up against Kansas City. They're playing on a short week. They just traded Tyson Campbell, by the way. We'll see if they can get Newsome, up and ready by Sunday, but could be a little bit shorthanded going up against one of the best receivers in the NFL. Hassan Haskins, over 34.5 rushing yards. I think this is a crazy low number considering the workload that I project for Hassan Haskins going up against a horrendous Miami run defense. Through 5 weeks, Miami 32nd in EPA per rush allowed, 32nd in success rate. The only defense in the NFL allowing a success rate above 50%. They've given up the most rushing yards in the NFL. Obviously, 3rd highest yards per carry. Just gave up a career day to Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle almost broke the single game Carolina Panthers rushing record last week against Miami in a game they were down 3 scores. I think Hassan Haskins might go over this number, midway through the second quarter. So love that one. Travis Etienne, over 14.5 receiving yards. Seattle's good against the run. They are bad against receiving running backs. Worry a little bit about Bashal Tutin maybe encroaching on some of those pass catching snaps, but I think 2 or 3 catches from Etienne probably gets him there. Rashad White, Trey Benson, Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, CMC have all gone well over this number against Seattle. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, over 61.5 rushing yards. Started to finally see that workload coming around last week, lit up the Chargers in the second half. Bears run defense, again, it's not Miami bad, but it's close. Dead last in yards per carry allowed at over 6 per attempt. They've already given up 19 rushes this season that have gone for double-digit yardage. They're the only team Ashton Genty and the Raiders have been able to get loose against. So love that number for Krosky Merritt. And then some quick anytime touchdown scores. Give me Hassan Haskins. Why not? Plus 115. If you want to dip into Kamani Vidal, plus 185, you could even parlay those. Get it at close to 6-1. Tucker Kraft, plus 160. Jamar Chase, plus 185. And I'm with you on Jake Ferguson at plus 160.